let's start out with our charcoal. We can take everything else, kind of set it aside. I like to hold on to the kneaded eraser because with charcoal, it's easily erased. And the first thing we want to do is our layout. We want to go ahead and establish where everything's going to be. So I'm just going to start out in the center and just ever so lightly with my pencil, I'm just going to draw this kind of egg shape for her head. And then you kind of start from there and kind of compare everything. And the most important thing is the face. And so we want to make sure that that's as proportionate as we can. So just remember the eyes are right in the middle of the head. So if this is the shape of our head, the size of our head, our eyes are going to be right smack dab in the middle. And if you want to, you can block them in with like some little lines or little edges or just little whatever to block them in. And then if you go from the eyes to the chin, right in the center of that is just below the nose. So what I do is I'll put my pencil there and say this is where the center is, but the nose is slightly above. So I'll come slightly above and just put a little mark there. Just a little line. That's the nose. That's the tip of the nose. And then down below that is going to be the mouth. And again, I could just block in the mouth just ever so lightly. You might have to erase some of that. But you could just block it in very, very slightly. Remember also, the eyes, oftentimes it's so easy to make those eyes too big. But just remember your eye, if you look at the nose and you establish the nose, the eyes are just as wide as the nose is. And you can use your pencil, you can go down there and you can like say, okay, my nose is that wide. Now my eye has to be that same width. And there's a width in between your eyes. So you can use that to place those eyes. I think that's one of the most difficult things that people have, making the eyes the right size and placed in the right place. It's that whole proportionate thing, and that's kind of difficult. So I just kind of place them there. A lot of this, we're going to use our cotton swab. We're just going to smear all this stuff around. So I can see where her hair would start. Her hair would start up into here. And then right above that, she's got a little hair that comes up over the top of her head. I'm just going to start with that very light shape of the hair here. You might have a little bit of hair coming down off the side, but you can't see much. So why draw it? If you can't see it, don't draw it. This is, after all, chiaroscuro. And in chiaroscuro, you let it bleed into the background. So anything that's dark, if it looks like it just fades into the background, let it fade in the background. And then I'm going to start, kind of go top to bottom, left to right kind of a thing, and just block in some lights. If these aren't in the right place, I can change it. Like her little crown, a head piece or something. It's not a helmet.
I just say it's a head.
We'll just call it a headpiece. We'll call it the Wonder Woman headpiece. Yeah, she blocks bullets with them.
Yeah, I mean, even though she's basically.
So again, I'm just slightly blocking in any light areas that I can see. If it's a shadow, just leave it out. Even if it's a fairly light shadow, just leave it out. Oh, I was going to tell you, the other thing you could get if you wanted to is a piece of tracing paper. So if you really want to draw a little quick, you're going to use your cotton swab to draw with. And what you do is you just take your charcoal, spread a little bit out on that tracing paper, and then picking it up with your cotton swab like this, you can come in and you can draw with that immediately. And it's very smooth. If you want to. I sometimes like to just go through it with my pencil first and then smear it, so I can smear it with this. Or there's times when I think, especially in texture, when I get down to her outfit and everything, yeah, I might want to just use this cotton swab to do that with. Anyway, just a thought. Again, I'm just showing you a technique, and what you do with it is up to you. I can blend a lot with this cotton swab. And your kneaded eraser. So if you take too much out or if you put too much in, that kneaded eraser can help you to adjust that. Remember, in chiaroscuro, we're concentrating on contrast, differences between light and dark. I know I can come back into this and lighten it up, make it a little brighter. So I'm not worried too much about this. This isn't as light as it needs to be. I just want to block it in. I want to get everything in there so that I can see my proportions. Just about out of all that charcoal I put on there to begin with. So once you get that kind of ghost-like image that's in there, you can keep adding to it, but you're layering it in, just like we do drawing. You just can kind of keep layering it in. I'm going to take now and go back into the areas that I think are really bright and try to get my contrast, or at least some of my contrast in there. Also, if there's something there that you think, I don't really need that, or it's in the wrong spot, you can use that kneaded eraser to pull it out. Sometimes I'll put in the charcoal and it's far too bright, so I have to rub it or get rid of it somehow because it's just too much. Very soft touch. I really haven't drawn much around the eye. You don't need much there. You can't see much anyway. So I just do it as much as I feel like I need to. Kind of like ink drawing. When in doubt, leave it out. In any dark areas, just either leave them out or use your eraser to get them. This is just using my kneaded eraser. You get a whole lot of that out with your kneaded eraser. You may or may not use your Prismacolor at all. I don't know. Some people like it, some people don't. But I'll show you what I do with it. And it's just a little here and there. Sometimes I like to use it completely or more than the charcoal, and other times it's enough. So like the little shine in her eye that's really bright, might have done that with the Prismacolor. It's a little more opaque than the charcoal. I can also, anything that's really bright, I can go over the charcoal with my Prismacolor and just brighten it a little bit. Or I could draw it first with my Prismacolor and then go over that. For example, she's got right down the bridge of her nose a very light area. I can go over that with my Prismacolor to the shine on her nose. Because that's very bright. Same thing up here. I could go over that with the Prismacolor up in there. Maybe even little bit above her eyebrow is very bright. Could do that with the Prismacolor, or I could do that with the charcoal. But the Prismacolor tends to be a little more opaque, a little brighter. So it's kind of up to you how you do it. You could do Prismacolor first and then charcoal, or you could do the way we did it, or just do one or the other. Biggest thing is that Prismacolor is not going to blend. It stays there. You could like do charcoal around it. So I'm doing a little charcoal on top of that Prismacolor that I just did. Out nice. Just using my kneaded eraser to I'm just barely touching that charcoal, and I'll bring in just a little bit of darkness there, just a wee hair. If it doesn't work out, you can always go back over it. Remember, really concentrate on the contrast. You want the darks and the lights. Once you nail the face, everything else is going to fall into place. It's going to be very fast. That's why I always like to do the face first. lot of the shadows in the neck underneath can be done with that cotton swab. And then just to brighten everything up, I'm going to go back over it with this Prismacolor and just brighten in those little areas that are a little brighter. And again, it's kind of up to you, your personal preference. Cool thing about chiaroscuro in hair, especially dark hair, is all you got to do is just tag it with a little bit in there. And then everybody understands that that hair kind of flows out. You don't need to draw all the hair. Just a couple little Little tags like that. Blend them in. Whatever it takes. There's hair. Piece of cake. You know who ought to get together? Wonder Woman and Thor. Because they're both immortal, right? They're from a different universe, huh? DC and Marvel. I was told you should never mix your universes. Make sure that you really get some contrast in there. So when you're thinking, okay, I'm just about done, everything's looking good, go back into your highlights. Take your Prismacolor or your charcoal, whichever one you want, go back into your highlights and give them a little bit of pressure and really make those things pop. Bring them right up. Any place that is really bright. Needed eraser really nice to get some of the softer, darker tones. About a minute left is all. Make sure your name is on this. looking around for some references that you'd like to do for this, for your final project?